Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
And a very good evening to you and welcome to Newsline Live. We're broadcasting, as we almost always do, from the Newsfirst studios in Dorset Street in Colombo. And yes, although the COVID matter is still around, there's also the very serious matter of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution as proposed. And to discuss that and to remind the youth of this country how very important it is to take notice of what is going on in terms of our Constitution, in terms of rules and regulations. We've got here somebody who is extremely passionate about that. As councillor from the Morotua Council, Attorney at Law, Lihini Fernando. Very good evening to you.
Good evening, Faraz.
And thank you very much for being on Newsline Live. And what exactly are your concerns in terms of the proposal for the 20th Amendment?
Actually, to be honest now, the 20th Amendment must be compared in line with what we have achieved via the 19th Amendment, I would say. Now, 19th Amendment is a significant piece of legislation in this country which was brought forward to reduce the enormous power that was vested with the executive. Now, what the people of this country must remember is that the constitutional amendment, the change of the constitution, was an election promise that was brought up from 1994, where President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, then President Mahinda Rajapaksa, where on the election campaigns they said that they will get rid of this constitution. But through the 19th Amendment, I think we were able to achieve significant progress where the President's powers were transformed to the Parliament, where the President was made accountable to the Parliament. So now the 20th Amendment that is being brought must be compared to what we have achieved by the 19th Amendment.
So what have we achieved? Have the people's sovereignty been enhanced?
Yes, I would say now 19th Amendment enhanced people's sovereignty, where we could challenge the President in a court of law, where a fundamental rights.
So pre-19th we were unable
We were unable to do that. President had immunity withere you could never challenge the President.
While he was the President?
While he was the President and after he was the President as well. But the 19th Amendment changed that. And right. while making the Attorney General a respondent, you could challenge the President. So right. which I would say a significant achievement.
Right.
And now by the 20th Amendment, again we back to the go back where the President can't be challenged. So
and is your contention then that the people must be consulted because they are going backwards?
Backwards. So see, now when this government came into power, one of the things that they highlighted was one country, one law.
Yeah.
So if it's one country, one law, how can one person be above the law? So when the President is given this enormous power, he becomes above the law, and he is not he doesn't become a figure that is accountable to people. People cannot question him. So this is, I think, is a fundamental flaw in the 20th Amendment, which I think the people should be concerned of.
And but the counter to all of this is that this government, right from the beginning, said give us the 2/3 majority because we need a strong government to fix the various issues.
Again, I ask you, they asked for 2/3. People gave them 2/3. Now they have 145 seats in Parliament.
Yeah.
They have the local councils with them.
Yeah.
What hinders them towards development? Do you need to bring in this 20th Amendment and give concentrate power across one individual? Is that a must? What hinders the President in exercising his duties?
Can you think of any benefit that accrues to the President in terms of strong government by diluting the powers of the Auditor General?
Yeah, that again, that's a big question. Diluting the powers of the Auditor General. But then where is this question of accountability, transparency? That is question. Now through this 20th Amendment, we know that the President's office, the Prime Minister's office, and shares, the government organizations where they hold more than 50% of the shares cannot be audited.
Right.
So then where is this whole transparency, accountability concept? So the Transparency International, the audit services, all of them have come out and questioned this.
Yeah.
So these are serious, I would say, eroding people's rights, where the whole transparency, the governance, the transparency factor is challenged by this 20th Amendment.
There is also another matter which, as a journalist, it raises the red flag, and that is the power of the proposed power of the Commissioner of Elections
Yes.
to tell private media how they should be doing whatever during an election period.
Yes.
Whilst I can agree and I can see the sense in equity by giving everybody a equal amount of airtime during that period, I cannot possibly agree from a journalistic point of view that the Elections Commissioner can tell me what to say and what not to say.
Yeah, so
as long as I don't say the obvious, like don't vote for X but vote for Y.
See, this is one of the questions. Previously, the Election Commissioner could only give regulations to the state media, but now it's brought to the private media.
They're proposing
to during an election and a referendum. So private media, they're entitled to have their own opinion. And then this will, if they bring in this regulation, if this is being tagged into the parliament, into the constitution, it becomes binding. Then there is no reversal of it. But if the government wants to kind of impose certain conditions on the private media, they can always use it in form of a regulation. But why bring it to the constitution? So then the private media, there's free, they are entitled to having their own opinion when it comes to publishing, and people are entitled to have dissenting views, and also, as much as you agree with the government, also to have dissenting views. So this is again affecting the people's freedom of thought as per Article 10 of the Constitution.
And do you think that all these arguments being presented before the Supreme Court will make, are you confident that it will?
See, we certainly hope so, because Supreme Court is the highest most authority. That's why I too have filed a petition, and we've gone to the Supreme Court to ask the question whether these things can only be passed by way of a 2/3, or does it require a referendum. Now, why we ask a referendum is, now in the Constitution there are certain clauses which we call entrenched clauses, which affects the people's direct sovereignty. So if those clauses are affected, then you must seek a referendum. Now, for example, what the general, I'd like to say something the general public must also understand, that they need to also be knowledgeable in being part of this whole constitutional process, the legislative process. Now, it's our right, it's people's fundamental rights that are being given to these three organs, which is the legislature, the parliament, the executive, and the judiciary. So it is our right that we have given to them. So how do we take part in this legislative process? Now, when a bill is gazetted, there's a certain period of time that it is placed before the parliament. It is placed in an order paper in the parliament. And once it is placed, there's a window of 7 days where individuals can go to court and file petitions. Now, the youth of this country, I think, needs to know these things, needs to understand how they can be a part of this process. So now, under that instance only, that we also have gone to court and challenged. So how can the people in this country be a part of this legislative process? Now, what the people of this country think is that their right is only limited to a vote. That their right, we just vote and that's it. No, but there is
the buck doesn't stop there.
Doesn't stop there, and then pointless you complain say the 225 is not doing what we want. But how have you participated? Now, these are things that people need to learn, read about, and understand how they can be part of this whole legislative process.
And it's easier now than ever before to keep up with all sorts of things because of things like this.
Yes, and there's government printers, gazetted things are online.
It's usually all online. Thank you very much for your questions. By SMS to 0772 300 305. The card should be on your screen. Do you think that Sri Lanka would tolerate a constitutional dictatorship, as it enjoys democracy for a long time and having had a very strong tradition compared to other countries?
I don't think when people voted for this government, when they gave 2/3, I don't think people thought that they are voting in for a dictator. They wanted, what the people of this country wants is to enjoy their democratic right, because we have our freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom of having dissenting views. People in this country are not ready to be under a dictator. So I don't think any leader who comes in should have that dictatorial mindset also. Why can't development happen in a democratic process? You look at all the, the developed countries. Were there dictators? Didn't they go through a democratic framework? It is the skill of the leader to work via this democratic process.
But again, I'm just going to play devil's advocate here for a second. Singapore is actually well, come on, it's almost like a police state.
Yeah.
Malaysia had its own sort of strongman government. Indonesia had that, and look where they are. And what has Sri Lanka gained, along with all these wonderful things called democracy and so on? We had every government since independence who haven't really delivered much in terms of our progress. Our per capita GDP is stuck around the $4,000 mark. Neighboring countries, even the Maldives, for example, it's way over us right now, and we've been far overtaken by the others. So, you know, democracy is never easy. It's and certainly not cheap.
Yes.
But we are lagging behind.
See, I would say this is the political rhetoric. Everybody is saying you need a dictatorship, a strong fist to develop a country. But is the president only the government? There's government officers, there is government servants.
So the others in parliament, are we suggesting that they have no backbone?
Exactly, that is what I'm saying. Why are we tolerating this kind of actions by the president is a question. Again, answering your question. Now, dictatorship. You said countries like Singapore and all that developed. But then again, it's not only the government doesn't consist only of the president. There's government officials. There's the cabinet of ministers. So it has to be a process. Now, this president can't he implement a process, an efficient government system, bring in e-governance systems, bring in a system that will create an efficient system so that development can happen. Does he need an iron fist to, you know, overnight to crush, break down certain buildings? Is that the way to go ahead with development? Democracy, what hinders development via democracy? So again, there is the law. How to work the law, how to work within the law is the question.
And what will take the youth of our country to get off their do-nothing couch and actually do something about it?
Yeah, something I'd like to tell the youth of this country is that you must understand that your role is not just to be on Facebook and just be keyboard warriors and, you know, put comments, share posts, but your role as a citizen must extend beyond that. We are all political savvy citizens. To what extent do we contribute towards the whole development of a country by passing our knowledge, contributing? Even politics today is considered to be a taboo by many people. How many young people, educated people want to come into the political arena? So, but everybody wants change. Who is there? Who is coming forward to act towards change?
Are you, as a legal person yourself, Lihini, are you concerned that by discussing the 20th Amendment whilst the Supreme Court is sitting,
yes,
is that are we breaking the rules?
No, not really. Not by any chance. We're not influencing anything.
Right.
We're just expressing our opinion, and this is not brand new information. This has been discussed, published in the media, and this has been a topic that has been widely discussed. So it is common knowledge, I would say.
I see. That was a question posed by one of somebody out there. Right, here we go. Okay, there's some of these I simply can't ask them. Why wouldn't the government approve the LRT project, which is proposed and then rejected? That might ease transportation in Colombo. Unfortunately, that question is, whilst it's relevant, but it's not relevant today, as our guest this evening is Lihini Fernando, an attorney at law and also part of the Moratua Council, and the SJB too. And we're discussing the proposed amendments to the 20th Amendment to Sri Lanka's Constitution. How important are these changes, especially when, you know, when you look at it and say almost the same lot voted for the 19th Amendment, and now they seem to be suffering. They're like, apart from the opposition, the SJB, most of these people appear to be taking, they're like jellyfish. Yeah, because I can't see a difference between jellyfish and them, because jellyfish, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't have a spine.
Sadly, yes. See, now we can see that there's resentment within the government also. We saw some of the ministers that openly criticized the 20th Amendment, saying that you should have, when people's fundamental rights, people's sovereign rights are affected, you must question your consciousness whether you can vote. One of the ministers had made a public statement yesterday, had issued a letter to the president.
Yeah.
So there is friction within the government as well. So we certainly think, I think let's wait for the Supreme Court judgment, a determination on what they come out with. So I think the government, it is not an easy ride as they thought it was.
But the government is exercising their whip, in short, with their members, because I notice that apart from other channels, government people are not coming on other networks who want to present both sides of the same story to the public, so that the public will understand. So it appears that they're not being allowed to have a free or a conscience vote.
See, this is the sad irony of politics. You know, once you are into a particular party, are you aligned to all the things that the party does? Do you have, where does a parliamentarian's consciousness comes into? So you are being elected there by the people to act for the people, but how many of them act for the people, or do they act for themselves? So these are the questions.
It appears that quite often it's by the people for myself. By the people, they come, they give all these election promises, and they say that they are going to act on behalf of the people, but at the end of the day, it doesn't happen, and the people at the end of the day are the losers. So they might bring in legislature, they might bring in this 20th Amendment, but will the people win, or will the leaders win? It is not just concentrated to one particular leader, but constitutional amendments should be for the next generations as well. Because it's often said that constitutions are for the state, meaning the people, not to be changed for every government.
Every government. So again, then the danger with this 20th Amendment is, okay, this particular president, if this particular president is not in office, if somebody else comes into this with such enormous power, what will happen? So these are the things that people need to question, I would say.
But how is it too late now for the people, having given a 2/3 majority?
That's it. We hope that the people's power is vested in other organs, and we hope that the parliamentarians, the SJB outright there is talking about it, and I think people too should come out and talk about it way more, because the people's power, the civil society power is still out there, and that is one of the most powerful tools. So how many of the youth today are aware of this? How many of the youth today know about the dangers that this 20th Amendment is doing, that it is going to erode your democratic rights, and we are building an autocratic leader like a dictator?
It looks like we're not going to be having our break today, but which is kind of good news, because you've got a couple more minutes than normal. Somebody's asking, why can't the 20th Amendment include the prosecution of the president in court if he fails in his responsibilities?
So it was there. It is them who have removed it.
Right.
It is them who have removed it. So the ability to challenge the president was there by way of fundamental rights, but now he has been given that immune power.
And what are the nuances of the government statement some days ago, that they will make the necessary changes at committee stage? Is that kind of a backdoor thing?
Yeah, so they now, when the Attorney General presented, he presented the changes that the government proposes. But the counter argument that was brought in was by the petitioners was that whatever that will be argued in court is the gazetted bill. So then also there were many councillors who said that this particular changes, that there is no faith that it will happen at the committee stage. So it might happen, it can be another hoodwink strategy of the government.
But the Supreme Court can only look at what is before them.
Before them, and what the bill that has already been gazetted.
Yeah.
So all the arguments were placed on the bill that was gazetted.
Right. And what chances for success for equity and for democracy?
It is up to the, I will not want to make any comments on that. So it is vested before the Supreme Court. Let them decide.
There's some people who say this is the last chance,
Yeah, I would
because if this comes into pass, the president will be able to appoint judges
of the Supreme Court.
of the Supreme Court and everywhere else.
Yes, Auditor General, everything, that is the danger, that the independence of the judiciary is being challenged. Then these independent
It's
commissions.
at the precipice, it's about to go down.
It's about to go down, and these independent commissions, the election commissions, no longer will there be a constitutional council. It will be a parliamentary council, and the decisions of the parliamentary council are not binding. It's only observations. So the president can either take it or leave it. And the most danger part is the dual citizenship. Now
Why
they have brought
why
in
is that so relevant?
I would say dual citizenship, if somebody is actually interested in serving the country,
Yeah.
why can't that person leave his citizenship in the other country and come back? And also, when you take a citizenship in another country, you do give an oath, and there's divided loyalties. So then it's questionable. Now when you take the American oath, it says I will bear arms on behalf of America. So where, if there's a crisis, where do your
Come on.
loyalties lie?
But to imagine that Sri Lanka, with its 21 million people, will go to war with Trump's America with 250 million people.
It's a nice thing to say, but you know, it's a constitution, it's a supreme law of the country.
But previously, we didn't have that.
Yeah, we didn't have that.
It was quite all right.
Again, I would say 19th Amendment brought certain changes. Our sovereign rights were enhanced.
Quite frankly, will you subscribe to the view that at the time that this was put into the 19th Amendment, it was clearly to leave some of the Rajapaksas out?
See, it happened, but should we go back? Well, under what reason it happened is not for me to judge or what you want me to say, but it has happened.
No, it doesn't say that.
Say,
there is a school of thought.
But it happened, but I don't think now I don't think we need to go back again, because we have citizens of this country who can perfectly serve this country.
How do we address the brain drain then? Because there are lots of people of Sri Lankan origin who went abroad for various reasons, either for economic reasons, because they found the pastures greener wherever, and therefore, how do we attract them here and say, listen, oh, by the way, if you want to do politics, you're going to have to change your citizenship and retake the ones from the land of your birth?
I would say it's a question. If you are really interested in serving your country, you will leave that and come. So it's up to the person. But I don't think the law should be compromised to accommodate different people's needs. That's what I would say.
And you are firmly of the belief that if, as they do, and they're espousing the cause of one law, one nation, then everybody, starting from the executive president to whoever, must be equal before the law.
Exactly.
That's the basic premise.
Yes.
Do you think that much of non-urban Sri Lanka or much of rural Sri Lanka, do you think that they appreciate the nuances of having the full impact of the changes proposed?
I don't know to what extent our people are aware of these changes that are being brought on the 20th Amendment. So the common people, they need to be more aware of these changes that are being brought forward, because right after, what people end up saying is, then they don't know their fundamental rights and everything are eroded, and then they don't know that it was actually this particular amendment that happened. So I think it's the responsibility of the people, responsibility of the civil society, and also the political parties to educate the people about this danger that is going to happen in this country.
If there is a referendum called, will you be out there campaigning?
Certainly.
And sending out the message?
Most certainly.
Is that the duty of the opposition?
I think it's the duty of the opposition to take this message, which they are currently doing as well, to the people, and we will probably have more and more people engagement at the grassroots level, and so that it's a more participatory process.
And is the opposition united in this?
Yes, I would say. I'd like to say that.
Although we have various people contemplating crossing over to the government side of thinking.
I think SJB is firm on this. SJB is against the 20th Amendment, and we see some of the other political parties like the JVP also has had their seminars educating the people. So I think there's a lot of resentment that is happening at the bottom level.
What would you say to the people about this? What is your message to the people?
My message to the people is, I think people should read a little bit more on the 20th Amendment, understand the dangers of it, that it is a step towards eroding the democracy of this country, and it's in the process of bringing, I would say, a dictator, an autocratic leader to this country. So I think it's time that the people are more vocal about it, and that they understand and that they participate towards this legislative process in the manner that is provided for them. More than that, to be aware of it. That is the responsibility. So because if this 20th Amendment is not defeated, I would say it is highly questionable that whether they will bring another constitution or whether there will be any changes. This will be it.
As we traverse towards the end of our program, another question. If the committee stage amendments don't take into account the determination of the Supreme Court, what recourse do the people have?
That's a good question. That is a good question. There's a deadlock there.
There's a deadlock? Is there a lacuna in the law?
This is also, during the 19th Amendment, technically what should happen is the Supreme Court will give their determination saying these provisions should be changed, or these provisions needs 2/3, or these needs a referendum. So it is up to the Parliament to pass or to amend accordingly. That's what should happen.
There's another question. Sorry.
Speaker who needs to sign it as well. So that's where it stops.
Is the people's sovereignty compromised if the committee stage amendments don't take into account the determination of the Supreme Court?
Technically, see, as I told you, all these three organs must work hand in hand.
Right.
So it is up to the Parliament to consider the recommendations of the judiciary.
Lihini Fernando, thank you very much for being on Newsline, and that is the end of our program this evening. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, and of course, God bless you.